Hi, it's Dave. In this video, I want to talk about the importance of motivating our kids in the right way and avoiding forcing things on them. I think there's a ton of problems that come up when we force our kids to do things that they don't want to do. In a way, we're telling our kids that we know the best and that they should just do what we tell them to do. And if they don't do that, then we might threaten negative consequences or punishment, or on the flip side, people might try to bribe their kids with some type of reward. But either way, often our kids lose their sense of autonomy and that feeling that they are in control. Rather, they feel like they're being forced to do things and they can start to feel a sense of powerlessness. I think it's very important that our kids learn to grow in their decision-making skills and in their confidence to make decisions. But if they continuously feel like they're forced to do things, then their motivation drops because they feel like they can't make their own decisions. And I think that's one of the reasons why we might be seeing a lot of aimless youth. And it's because they're not just confused, but they lack confidence in making decisions because for most of their life, they've been told what to do. And the paradigm of a lot of education is one that's typically saying, just do as I tell you to do, right? Or else. And that type of model, it's good at instilling the ability to follow rules, but they're not very good at knowing what to do with their lives or making up their own mind about things. And I think this skill of decision making needs to be something that is fostered in our kids' education. So we need over time to help our kids make more decisions and better decisions. And we want to see our kids' autonomy and their sense of independence grow over time as well. So the result is by the time they become adults, they're able to make great decisions and they have a ton of experience making great decisions. But the key to all this is we need to find a way to motivate our kids in the right way without forcing them to do things that they don't want to do and rob them of their confidence and sense of autonomy. All right, let's go back to the role of inspiration. I think that inspiration needs to precede motivation. In other words, if you're going to motivate your child to do something, I think you really want to focus on inspiring them first, because inspiration is kind of like the seed to motivation. In order for kids to want to do something, they need to be inspired to do that. And there needs to be some type of imagination of the potential in order for them to get excited about something. If they don't have that, then they just grudgingly go along and do something. I think oftentimes it just leads to resentment. Or they might just give up doing that later on and they feel like they don't have control or autonomy over their own lives. And the result is we're building weak-minded children and eventually adults that know how to follow directions and do things because they have to, but they don't really have the innate inspiration or motivation to do great things on their own. So what does it mean to inspire, and how can that help us motivate our kids? I think the easiest way to inspire is to show our kids something awesome. Because if kids see something awesome, they want to do it and they get inspired. And the awesomeness of certain things creates this wonder and curiosity about it. And the more you show something awesome to our kids, I think they want to do it even more. And obviously, I want to caveat this by saying that it's important to choose the right things to inspire our kids with. You don't want to be choosing things that aren't helpful or beneficial to our kids. You want to choose things that are profoundly important and things you want to seed into your kids' lives by inspiring them toward those things. See, after your kids are inspired, then I think the most important thing is to provide them a pathway where they can build skills and knowledge to do those inspiring things. And that pathway includes tools and resources that they need to build certain skills. And oftentimes along the way, kids will need to troubleshoot because it's not going to be a smooth road, because there could be a very challenging and difficult period to go through in order to build certain valuable and important skills. So let me give you a few examples in my own parenting. So first off is reading. So with my kids, my wife and I, we decided from a very young age to read a ton of fun and cool books to them. So ever since they were probably like less than 1 year old, we started to read to our kids just a bunch of books every day. And we would read to them a lot in the morning, in the afternoon, even in the evening. And we made it a priority to find really interesting books for them. We always had books laying around and every day we would read to them. And our kids grew up basically looking at books, reading like books with us, and they thought that books are awesome. And they were just super fun and interested in those books. And they would look forward to the time to read books with us. And I think because they had that type of inspiration, meaning they saw books as fun and interesting, something happened where their brain just started to subconsciously pick up how to read. And so after doing this for many years, our kids just naturally taught themselves how to read. And I think it's because they valued that skill so deeply subconsciously. They basically wanted to read and needed to read because they saw how great it was. And they ended up reading much faster than we thought. And they ended up loving it in a greater way than we thought. And we didn't even ever have to teach them specifically, right, the skill of reading. In other words, we just read to them a lot, and one day they just started to read themselves. And we never had to make it like a separate so-called learning activity. And after they started to read, we started to buy a lot of fun and interesting books. And I decided to go extreme, and I provided hundreds or thousands of books to my kids to read and made sure that they had a constant stream of fun and interesting material to read. And my kids responded great, and they're able to grow their curiosity and knowledge because they have a ton of books they want to read, and we never have to force them, or we never even have to remind them to read, because the books are there and they're engaging, and the kids have an innate love and value to read. So when I look back at my kids' reading experience, it follows this order where first there was inspiration and motivation. And in order to get inspired to start the cycle, they needed to see how fun and interesting books were. And they needed to be guided through that process. We needed to show them and read with them, right, these great, fun, and interesting books. And we had to do that over and over daily over many years. And they were able to pick up the value of reading and even the skill of reading. And now they're able to innately understand how awesome reading is. And I think that type of love of reading, it just is the foundation of gathering knowledge, of discovering knowledge. And it's like a gateway. If you can have the love of reading, right, that curiosity, you can enter into so many domains and fields and really become an expert really fast. My kids are 6 and 9 now, and they voraciously read. And it's amazing how much knowledge that they're able to pick up through reading on their own. They read a voracious amount every day, and it's way beyond my expectations. All right, a second example of this order of inspiration, motivation, and action is in tennis. So I really wanted to teach my kids and get my kids into some kind of sport. I really believe in exercise, and I think it has some really profound beneficial impact on our mind and bodies and everything. And so I intentionally tried to inspire them with tennis. Now, I had a sequence of events that I wanted to go through, which is I just didn't want to take them out on the court and teach them tennis. I wanted to build inspiration first. I wanted to seed it, and I wanted the right sequence of events. So this was very intentional. I personally love to play tennis, so I would take them with me sometimes to show them myself playing tennis and to show them how much I liked it and how fun it could be. And then the next thing I tried to do is take them to a lot of tennis tournaments. I would take them to some professional tennis tournaments. We would even travel sometimes, make it a week trip or something, and we would see some amazing, fun, exciting matches between tennis pros, and it really interested them. I mean, at first it was difficult because they didn't know how to score and what was going on, but eventually they learned the scoring. They learned to even sort things out, to learn players' names, and by the second, third, and fourth tournament, they really started to enjoy tennis. And that really started the seed of inspiration. And just seeing awesome tennis and see how much fun it is, my kids started to want to learn to play tennis as well. And so I was careful not to force tennis on them before they had that inspiration and motivation. And there's an order, right? And the order isn't forcing them to do it or making them do it or teaching them. It's the order is building the inspiration that leads to motivation. And once they have that motivation, then it's taking action where they can start to try to learn and build skills. So after they got that first steps of inspiration and motivation, then I was able to start to provide the tools and resources for them to grow those skills. And the first part with inspiration and motivation, that's not easy because it really takes a lot of intentionality and planning and forethought to provide the right type of inspiration that really leads to motivation, right? And the second part, which is providing the tools and resources for them to grow in those skills, that's not that's not easy either, because kids are in different places, they learn in different ways, and I had to really be humbled in a lot of ways with my kids to really match the right style and type of kind of learning environment for my kids. And so as a result, it's taking a ton of involvement on my part to grow the seed and then also help them grow the skills. But again, it's not forcing, meaning it all starts with the motivation, building the desires in them, and then helping them, right, take the next steps because they want to do it. All right, another example in the inspiration, motivation, action is with piano. So I'm kind of really into this Renaissance model idea of a well-rounded education. And I'm a big believer in music. I really think it adds a profoundly important aspect to our life. And it was a really important thing I wanted my kids to get into. I didn't really care like what type of music exactly or what kind of instruments, but I wanted them to have, again, that awe, like that appreciation, the wonder for music and the arts. And so I basically went again with the same type of plan, and the plan was to build in the inspiration, and then to let that inspiration become motivation. And so what I did was, again, rather than taking them to piano lessons or teaching them piano, I got a piano and I just modeled it myself. I started to play piano for them. Now I have a little bit of piano background or skills, so I could show them and I could sing while playing piano, and they just thought it was so cool to see piano. I'd open up the strings and kind of show them what's going on and sing some songs that they liked, and they just loved it. And they saw how really interesting piano was, and that started the seed for them to really want to learn piano. And I wasn't pushing it. If they didn't want to learn piano, it's because I hadn't planted enough seeds of inspiration in them, right? So I would keep on planting until they're like, oh, they're dying to really want to, or they're dying to learn piano. And when they had enough interest and motivation, that's when I provided the tools and resources to help them get started to learn. And so I started to look for different apps and resources. I found some various piano apps, tried them out. Actually, my son was really interested himself by this time because he was really motivated, right? He had a lot of inspiration. So he was trying out all these apps after I downloaded them. He stuck with one app called Simply Piano, but there was a challenging part of the app in the beginning where it was hard to get through. And that's when, I think at times we need to come alongside our kids and help them through challenging episodes and times where it's hard for them to get through. They need that support, and they need, sometimes it's way overwhelming, certain things. They need help to navigate and to provide an environment where they're getting challenged in the sweet spot, and where it's not too overwhelming, where it's like they're able to do it. I think that's a challenging thing. We live in a world where I think we're transitioning into a personalized education system. I think AI is going to help us get there, where we can match the right level. But currently, right, there's a lot of resources out there that are not at the level, right, of every student out there. So I think there's a need for a lot of guidance and help with that. But yeah, my kids went through those challenging times. I helped them, and they got through with it great, and they wanted to do it. And the result is amazing because, for example, with my son, I've never had to tell him to play piano or to practice or anything. He just loves piano, and he likes to practice, and he's getting like really good with piano basically on his own and through certain resources and certain apps. And he feels like he's in control. He's the one wanting to do it, deciding to do it, getting better, and it's such a confidence boosting thing, and he's getting connected to music, which is awesome. And yeah, I think that's exactly the way it needs to be. And I'm happy because he's building going back to the beginning of the video, he's building that sense of autonomy, that sense of confidence that he's making the decisions, he's in control. And by doing that, we're building that sense of empowerment in my son, and he's gaining a lot of confidence, not just with piano, but I think that overflows into a lot of different areas. Yeah, I think music is awesome. I think it connects us emotionally to things around us. There's something about music I think that is deeply profound. So let's take a step back, and I want to look at and think about this idea at this of the center of inspiration being awe. So I think in order to really motivate and inspire, you, you need to first elicit this feeling of wonder, like something's amazing, and you have this reaction of wow, that's awesome, and I think that's kind of the beginning of inspiration. And inspiration will lead to motivation. And so, really, the focus, and I think one of the skills parents need to have, is how do we instill this sense of awe and wonder, right? How do we get that? And how do we get that strong enough and often enough where it can actually transition into inspiration and motivation? And that kickstarts the whole process. And that's the secret. That's the key, right, to doing things in a way where kids aren't being forced. I think in our modern world, we kind of, in a way, lock out a lot of the awe and wondrous things of nature and the world. And we've kind of morphed it into this thing where, what are kids excited about or, awestruck about? It's oftentimes like a short clip on social media or something that, it's like, I don't know if it's like the deep awe and wonder that our forefathers and historical people in the past have really connected with, right? And that's where I think I'm old school in the sense that I think there's something about nature that we've neglected, or I think in a way put aside in our modern day society, where there's a lot of avenues and pathways where nature can really instill a deep sense of awe. And that's why when my kids were very young, I made it a big priority to go camping a lot, and we would spend months on the road, camping in mountains by the ocean, and just campfire every night, and really try to get connected with the profound, humbling effect of nature. Like, for example, imagine you're at the ocean and you're just blown away by the waves and the wind, and just you sense just something like way more powerful than you. That's awe-inspiring, right? Or you're in the mountain and you're in the forest. It's quiet. You hear the birds chirping. You have a campfire in front of you, and there's such a stillness and a peace of nature. You're so connected with that is just so like humbling in a way. I think these type of experiences, if they can build the foundation for a child who is constantly in awe and wonder, and they're humbled by the things around, that becomes a foundation for curiosity, for inspiration, where they want to learn things and do things and discover things because there's so much to learn, right? And that's really, I think, the goal for my kids, for connecting and introducing them to nature, is I want them to be inspired and interested and curious about a ton of things. I want them to be humbled by how many things there are to learn about the world that we still don't know. And I want them to have the feeling like, wow, the world is crazy big, right? It's amazing. There's power, there's beauty that, it's endless. And I want them to have that, that humility that's really deep, that becomes the foundation, I think, of learning. So anyways, moving on and kind of, taking a step back, summarizing all this, is I think forcing our kids to do something that they don't want to do, I think basically is counterproductive. And I think when we understand the benefit and the potential of doing it in the right order, where we provide inspiration and motivation, and then we help them build skills with the right resources and tools, then it becomes something super empowering. They love to do it. It builds confidence in them. And this is kind of the heartbeat of what I think is healthy education. You're building up the empowerment of the self, better decisions, more skills. And that's what I think we want to see. I think we don't want to see, and I personally don't want to see, an education system and where it's counterproductive, where we're forcing our kids to do stuff and we're taking away that sense of autonomy. And we do that because we just want to rush into things. We want to see them do the outer action of studying. or reading or something, that we mess up the order and we skip out on the inspiration and the motivation first, and we just try to force the action. And the end result is you've messed up things so drastically. Now the kids feel like they don't have any power, and then they get into this rut of being very discouraged, where they feel like there's nothing they could do or there's nothing they want to do. And I think that's the pitfall or the place we want to avoid. And I think it's a very dangerous place. And I think with our modern education system, we really need to rethink the order of how we're doing things and how we can better inspire kids to motivate them and reprioritize things, where it's not about classroom management. It's not about obey or else, you get punishment or bribes. It's more about, hey, let's instill awe, let's instill wonder, let's instill curiosity. And let's personalize it, because kids, and we could do it now more than ever with technology, with AI. Let's use those tools to revamp our education system, how we treat our kids, to do it in the right order and build really empowered kids, right? And I think this can make probably one of the biggest differences, right, in our generation. So yeah, I think there is a big kind of deeply rooted value system that we live in that has prioritized and instilled this, this value system where we're commanding our kids and expecting them to obey. And we're telling them, you do this because you have to do it because I'm an authority figure, right? The teacher will say, do it because I told you to, right? Because I'm the teacher, you're the student. So we teach them from this authoritative kind of paradigm, and the kids start to feel that, and they get robbed of their autonomy, because the authoritative parenting, the authoritative teacher education system basically justifies, right, this emphasis on command and obedience because of order, right? They want to keep order. But the value to nurture and to raise up the kids' sense of confidence and empowerment is just so weak. It's just not there. And I think part of it also is the value system is so focused on the external actions of like, hey, are you studying for 30 minutes a day, right? Are you practicing your piano for 20 minutes a day? Are you doing this or this or this? Where we're not seeing the true internal things that are going on. Like, how excited are they about things? Like in the school system, are we measuring stuff like that? Like, are we measuring like how curious they are on certain topics? Like, what's their curiosity level, right? With science, with history, with sociology, with math, etc. Are we measuring their sense of awe and wonder across many topics? Are we measuring their confidence level of their feeling in control, that they're making decisions, that they're doing the things that they want to do? Like, shouldn't we be measuring those things in our education system? Like, doesn't that matter? Like, isn't that kind of the core, the crux of education? If you have kids who don't, have that, who don't think they're making their decisions, they've given up on choice, then what can you teach someone who doesn't want to learn, right? Like, their mind is closed, their ears are closed. I mean, I think some teachers in our modern education system, value system, they can justify all this, and parents can too, right? And they could say, hey, what's the other choice? Like, what can we do? We have to manage our classroom, we have to manage our kids, our family, and I have to tell them what to do, and they just need to listen to me. And teachers will say, hey, I don't think it's realistic to try to inspire every single student in the class because it's not possible. It's easier just to, tell the kids what to do and expect them to obey it, force the kids to do something, because at least you get the kids in line and they're doing something, right? It's not mass like chaos and they're not out of control. However, the result is most of the kids, or a lot of the kids, end up faking the action. Like, they don't want to do it. Like, you haven't convinced them. They don't have the inspiration and the motivation. They're just going along with it because they're afraid of the punishment, or trying to get the bribe, either way. And it's just an outer form of the action, meaning it's not an innate, true thing you're seeing, behavior. It's kind of almost like a fake acting out, right, of an action that they don't really genuinely believe. And the end result, I believe, is a very poor outcome. because you can only fake it to a certain point. And sure, yeah, you can fake it for years, but eventually it's going to come out, meaning you don't have the motivation. You don't want to do it anymore, right? You're sick of it. You're tired of it. You don't feel like you have any say in it. You lack confidence, you lack focus, you lack the skills, right, to do things because you haven't decided to do things. All the things you go through, you just went through it to go through the motions, and the learning wasn't deep. Right? And that's the crisis of modern day education, I believe, is you wake up one day and you don't have the depth of education that you really need to survive and thrive in a fast changing world. But ultimately, I believe that's not where we want and need our education to be. We want our kids to be strong and independent. We want them to have a ton of skills and knowledge across many domains to think critically. We want them to feel empowered, making their own decisions, feeling like they're in control, making decisions on how to build their skills, how much they want to invest in it, right? And ultimately, they need to be building and creating things of value. Think about it. If kids today aren't being taught how to build and create things of value, I don't know how they're going to survive in a fast-changing world where, you've got to adapt and use what's at hand to build and create things of value. And that takes a lot of skill, it takes a lot of insight, and it takes, I believe, kids to become adults in a way where they're in control, that they've built up skills, right, their whole life, rather than just being forced to fake the action and to, go through the motions. I really think that going through the motions, it's more of a waste of time than a lot of us realize. We can justify it saying, oh no, it's good to go through the motions. But ultimately, the openness of the mind when you just go through the motions, I think is so low. You just don't retain much. It's just not beneficial, that productive. Right? Maybe there's a limited, amount of benefit. I don't know. But ultimately, I think the much better way is you want an open mind, an openness, right, to the child, to the student, where they're asking it for it, they're hungry for it, right? And the way you get it is you start with inspiration, you motivate the kids, and then they're making decisions to build upon those skills, and you're helping them each point along the way. They feel supported, but they also feel like they're the ones in charge, right? They're the ones, the key decision makers. Lastly, I want to talk about this idea of countercultural influence. So I think because there's such deep historical and cultural systematized values that promote this command obedience approach to education and parenting. Because of that, I think it's important for parents to have some type of countercultural influence that prioritizes an internal value system and the mindset of kids. Meaning, rather than valuing or prioritizing the shallow actions or the external responses, right? Just the kids going through the motions, just, we tell them what to do, they do what we tell them. Rather than valuing that, we need some countercultural influence or ideas that we get on a constant basis that help us remind us and help us to refocus our thoughts that the more important thing is not our kids to go through the motions, but our kids to build a true value system and a healthy mindset that's really going to take them far in this life. So first off, they need to feel like they're in control. They need to feel like they're the ones making decisions. They need to feel like they're the ones progressing themselves in this life toward certain goals and things, and that starts with inspiration and motivation. And this is, I think, essential to all of education and all of parenting. It probably is one of the key foundation points for education. And anyways, I just wanted to share this video, and I can go on and on, but I wanted to encourage you, if you have some interest in this topic, check out some of my other videos that I've shared on parenting. And I go through a lot of these kind of countercultural ideas of parenting that we need to start over. We need to really rethink parenting from first principles, not what parenting has been in the past, not what schools how schools teach it, but rather how should parenting be done? Like, what is the right order? What is the right value system? Like, what are we looking for? What are we trying to build as parents, right, in our kids? So anyways, hope that's been helpful. If it has, yeah, go ahead and like, and we'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks.